which are often then still overlooked, can trigger a crisis. That means a time-critical decision is necessary to return the situation back to normal. But if this crisis is not recognized as such, due to lack of perception, a catastrophe threatens. While in technology, especially in aerospace, the so-called Murphy's Law, you might note, everything that can go wrong will go wrong, is considered for emergency and recovery planning. Business economists, lawyers, and politicians in particular find it difficult to prepare rationally for crises and disasters. There are currently numerous crisis-related challenges for decision makers in politics and business nowadays. One example, the Austrian army estimates the probability of a blackout as very high. They say it's an unavoidable scenario, according to these experts of the Austrian Armed Forces. In their Security Policy Annual Forecast 2020, the probability of a blackout occurring within the next 5 years is given as 100%. Another current example, just a glimpse of the website Maritime Traffic is enough to convince oneself of the fragility of our supply chains these days. These are potential disasters, man-made as well as sometimes natural, but they are predictable. But also combinations of unfortunate circumstances of force majeure, acts of God, occur. These can generate disasters of unimagined proportions and affect almost the entire world. Then we are speaking about so-called black swans. You have to mind that nowadays we have around 20 supervolcanoes all around the world. An eruption of one can eject several thousand cubic kilometers of ash and rock material into the atmosphere. Researchers now say they are under time pressure because a super eruption is inevitable every 17 years on average. And the last one was almost 28,500 years ago in New Zealand. In that sense, as the natural disaster is overdue. Whether one can and should really prepare for a black swan scenario would probably be more an academic gimmick. If, for example, a nuclear warhead of an intercontinental ballistic missile ICBM rushes on my hometown in a war, I can open an umbrella and play duck and cover or leave it alone. But, ladies and gentlemen, for all other threats below such a dystopian scenario, however, we should note precaution is feasible, better than aftercare, and a moral duty for entrepreneurs and politicians. Otherwise, they would be ignorant underachievers. So now I'm coming straight to emergency response planning in a broader sense of meaning. That is prevention, protection, damage minimization, and restart. The topic is about a clear rejection of the positivist, ignorant worldview mentioned at the beginning, because it's backward looking. Nevertheless, on the other hand, no fanatic prepper mentality should be preached, which aims to be right with doomsday scenarios and so eagerly awaits the end times already sitting in a bunker surrounded by supplies stockpiled up to the ceiling. But our ancestors in prehistoric times, however, survived because they were a bit paranoid. Only those who were aware that a noise in the bushes could be welcome prey, but also a life-threatening predator like a saber-toothed tiger, had a chance to pass on their own hunting experiences to other clan members and to remain in the gene pool for a while to have descendants. The Old Testament tells the story of Joseph and Pharaoh. Joseph correctly interpreted dreams of his ruler. After 7 fruitful years had passed, 7 years of drought would come. The neighboring countries of Egypt are said to have starved then, while in Egypt, on Joseph's device, enough grain had been stockpiled in the previous fruitful years to survive this drought. Possibly the German proverb, save in time and you will have in time of need, is derived from this. It's banal but true. unfortunately with little effect in an era of a credit money system. It is worthwhile to learn from experiences of past days and, if possible, from the mistakes made by others today. This would be a real learning culture aiming at safety and security due to best practice. So we should care about prevention. That means create an early warning system for disasters and conflicts so you can create strategic depth in space and time. So if you're a small retailer and a global player with its crushing market power in the internet is coming your way, you should modify your strategy early on. Next advice, protection. Make sure that your virtual assets, which today include lots of data, are protected according to the current state of the art. No IT system will ever be completely secure, but to run it without basic IT protection would be fatalistic and downright an invitation to hackers. Today, they mostly operate in an established underground economy and look for the low-hanging fruits. So drive up the resource requirements for hackers to attack you. Make it expensive for them. Next advice, damage minimization. Define fallback levels for your company or your area of responsibility as a decision maker in order to maintain emergency functionality that is fail operational, even in the event of a disaster. You should define a suitable fallback level for your purposes, design the related processes in an emergency plan, and regularly test and improve it. In this context, an insurance, office service providers, backup computer centers, temporary workers, etc. can play a supporting role. And finally, my advice for restart. Like the emergency state, the restart must also be planned and tested again and again. So if you are planning a restart in your company or your area of responsibility, make sure that all systems have reached a defined state beforehand. This will usually be a low energy state. That means switch off all systems that are not immediately required. In addition, it is necessary that the current system state can be communicated locally and, if possible, also beyond your region to reach all your relevant network partners under severe conditions in order to prevent overshooting beyond the desired normal state. So I come to the end. Ladies and gentlemen, my conclusion is, after this look back in history, be prepared for the worst and yet hope for the best. All the best to you, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your lecture, for your interesting lecture, and for your conclusion. And I would like to ask Professor Sabrios to present us his presentation. Okay, how are you?
Fine, thank you. You hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. We have a problem with big marker countdown system. So indeed, in this time, I have to be at our mosque to pray. But anyhow, I'm here for you. I want to give a greeting for Poland people as Wszystkich Szacunkiem pozdrawiam. Am I right? Okay. My name is Sabrios, and from Istanbul Commerce University, the head of Industrial Policy and Technology Management Department. By beginning, I'd like to send my best regards to our colleagues and who are listening us from Poland and Germany and also our countries. And my subject was on cybersecurity and actually a proposal for constructing a cyber defense system for integrated economies. And chosen location with their alternative. So as a methodology, we want to use full fuzzy AHP model, which is defined as analytic hierarchic process with maybe Prometheus or Topsy system. First, I want to say, as Professor Dirk says, change is obvious, and we are also changing. In the past, especially before itself and of the 20th century, states were at war. But nowadays we are talking about cyber wars. Even in a quiet day, we can assume that there are millions of cyber attacks. And lastly, I have checked that 2 million attacks per day was incurred in the whole of the world. So, what are the reasons of these attacks? Why are they attacking? And what are their purposes? What tools do they use? How do they determine the proper time to make an effective attack? And what are the results of the attacking? And while questions such as these forms the basis of the study, we make a different suggestion for precautions to be taken based on protection. So first, let's take a look what the attack mainly has objects. We can say that the first reason of having cyber attack is the political aims. It seems to be an important reason. We can consider them as the first group, political cyber attacks. The second group may be considered with the theft of money, actually, as it is well-known ransomware or malware systems, and those who aim to steal money from our pockets, bank accounts, and or demand they may demand ransoms. So those who are actually running after our credit cards also. The third group may be said that the mostly dependent on the states and have intelligence purposes. Of course, cyber attacks do not have cyber consequences. In addition to these consequences, they may also have physical effects, blocking your data, losing your data, and crashing your system. We see attacks involving physical consequences. There was a documentary called 0 Days, as far as I can remember, as described there. The cyber attack had turned into physical act of controlling the operating temperature of computers and causing to explosion. One of the biggest examples of to the cyber attacks may be given as October 21 in year 2016. Many well-known websites, almost 90 websites, I think, especially Web 2.0 websites, has been crashed down, and it was very witnessed a massive of DDoS attacks. And DDoS could be explained as a kind of botnet attacks on domain name servers, a data bombardment, especially almost 1.2 terabits per second to the DNS. And it may include your or our systems, your or our connecting internet vehicles, and we may be a part of that attack. It was very enormous for us, for the world. Existence is about you and what you do, and maybe don't do with this device you use. It may also include your devices. It may include your vehicles. Free cheese. There's a Turkish saying in our book. Free cheese is only available in mousetrap. So data is very important for this case. As in cyber attack made at that time, the human beings have learning every attack, and human beings protection and having gotten of these kind of attacks increases the development of the technology itself, and it has also beneficial sides. But our main concern is the other side. So let me quickly talk about the types of attacks. One of them may be called as man in the middle attack. I don't know why they are calling man, but woman may also be in that middle. So maybe it is called human in the middle attack. Phishing and spear phishing attacks. These are very well-known. Drive-by attack, botnet attacks, social engineering attacks. It is very important and it's very interesting one. SQL infection attacks, malware or ransomware attacks, as I have said, cross-site scripting attacks, password attacks, the denial of service, DOS, or distributed denial of service, DDoS, may also be other types. And the inside attack and data breaches, it is very interesting for whole the systems actually of the world, because by disgruntled employees or ex-employees may do that kind of attacks. Cryptojacking attacks and crypto mining malware attacks also may be another type of attacks. And eavesdropping also can be seen in different types of attacks. I want to give some examples to cyber attacks as a line period from beginning of 1999, which was a NASA cyber attack. In that attack, 23 days, the NASA whole computer system was locked down, and it was made by a 15 years old gentleman. What was his name? Jonathan, probably Jonathan. In 1990, in the same year, we have seen the world was faced with a Melissa target was Microsoft, as you might remember. And December 2005, we can see Ukraine, especially the energy system, cyber effects. So in this attack, human being has noted that energy companies is very vulnerable targets for cyber attacks, and actually the most cyber attacks are going to energy, especially nowadays. And in the year 2006, probably December, the retailer company in United States, it was very big one, and almost 45 million people, million credit card and debt information was stolen by a malware system. And in 2007, Estonia, it was also a big one, and it is by means of its target, it's a bit different from the others, because it was a kind of activist opposing to relocation of the statue of the Stalin's, but I think if I'm not wrong, and it was a kind of hacktivist rather than activist. So it was penetrated by banks, broadcasting, and all systems based on the internet in Estonia. In 2010, Stuxnet was very famous and well-known one. The reason and who created is not still obvious, because even it is said in many literature it was created by USA and Israelis intelligence, but it's not documented, so we cannot say anything at least scientifically. But Stuxnet infected the Iranian system, Iranian nuclear infrastructure system, and 200,000 computers were affected in 14 industrial sites in Iran, and especially the uranium enrichment plant was affected. April 2011, we can remember Sony PlayStation, and then 2014 again to Sony Pictures. There are also different cyber attacks. And when we came to 2014, Home Depot was also one of the most important one for cyber attacks, because 56 million cards and their information were stolen. And again, Who the World WannaCry ransomware was also important one in cyber attack, because they affected every kind of computers, every kind of vehicles which are related with internet, and they need to give your to be able to give your system back. They need almost $300 and $600 in Bitcoin as a ransom. After all these, we want to say that this is very important for us, and our main topic is that using fuzzy AHP and some additional models, can we define, can we locate, can we make a structure as being NATO, instead of NATO just having a cyber defense system? What we mean, we can create and list AHP criterion to be able to give a multi-criterion decision analysis by the AHP, and then we can locate in between the alternative areas some plant that make a big data centers, and make also construct a kind of cyber security system, cyber defense system. So when we think such kind of maybe utopic such kind of things, we decided that there are some main criteria for this kind of structure. The first criterion is to find the point where the temperature that is the climate conditions, cooling will be the most optimum, with the thought that it will reduce the most important cost in the data centers. Climate is observed as the first criterion due to its expensive, due to its high cost. The second criterion may be internet exchange points. For such kind of structure, this is because the choice of the connection point of the internet on the token ring system will be taken into account. It would be considering the advantage it will provide in meeting the attacks. Afterwards, as a third one, the location to be selected will have a facility and infrastructure positioning suitable for the data center and cybersecurity infrastructure. The fourth criteria may be taken as the issue of distance from the natural disaster road. The fifth criteria will be the availability of human resources to be provided at the location of the cost of positioning. And the sixth criteria is the issue of being a location where Tier 4 or ISO 27K certification can be established, where environmental and renewable energy resources and evaluated together. So finally, it is a matter of the size of the area of the land, that is the size of the area required for proper design can be considered as the seventh criteria for AHP model. It is envisaged to work on the proposal to establish a data center and cyber defense facility in parallel with such an economic integration for each country's blocks. In the study, we currently cybersecurity investments and policies of the countries has been examined. And this method will be created an important common denominator advantage in the first of the threats which are listed in the beginning of the presentation, political, and the third one was interested of the country's aims, the country's policy, and will ensure a more efficient and productive use of resources apart from the cost of cybersecurity. Probably time is up. Thank you for your listening to me, and we are honored to be part of such a beautiful organization. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all the members of the organization who contributed, especially Professor Isabella. I believe that these studies will lead to good results to humanity, and I want to finish with a Turkish and with the Poland famous proverb: whether the door locked or not means nothing as long as the thief is inside. It is a Turkish proverb, and one of them is Polish. Only shoes know that socks have holes. If I'm not wrong, these are refers inside.
And I hope it will be enough time to discuss after all the presentation or the lecture, because your lecture was very interesting, and I would like to ask you a few questions. But first of all, I would like all the presenters had a chance to say something. Thank you, Professor. Cyprios. And at present, can I ask Mrs. Didem Ark Abiar to present her lecture, her presentation?
Sure. First, I reflect my slides.
Okay, we're waiting.
Okay, is it okay? You can see?
Yes, we can see. So go on.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, distinguished scholars.
Good morning. Good morning, Akaysen.
Good afternoon for Turkey. Distinguished scholars, this is Didem Arık, PhD student at Istanbul Commerce University in International Trade Department. Today, I'm going to present digital onboarding in Turkey and the risks in banking sector. In this study, I focused on this quite new regulation in Turkey and the current situation of the banks in digitalization. For Gazette is published on April 1st, 2021 and entered into force on May 1st, 2021 by Banking Regulation and Supervision Agency. In the light of these developments, which can be considered as a precursor to a radical transformation in the Turkish financial system, the contract relationship was the first time established between banks and the certain potential clients, eliminating the need to face each other and making it possible to start the process digitally and end it digitally. This is an important and different point in Turkish regulations, so I would like to underline this, that in remote identification, the customer is only able to use the Republic of Turkey identity card, and the only identities of real persons and real person merchants are subject to identification. And only account opening process is available for them. That means if they want to use a product, they should go to a branch. In addition to that, the new conjuncture that emerged with the pandemic, the course of change, the direction in our country, the demands coming from the obliged groups, and the enormous advances in technology and communication, the need to take some measures integrated with increasing digital applications were also provided by the local financial intelligence unit, MASAK, with the scope of the secondary regulations on this subject that had entered into force before this regulation. To summarize this process in 3 phases, firstly, remote identification takes place in the form of online video calls without the need for the customer representative and the person to be physically in the same environment. In the video call method to be used in remote identification, sufficient security measures shall be taken by considering possible technological, operational, and similar risks. The remote identification process shall be reviewed at least twice a year, and updates should be made when necessary. Secondly, the video call phase of remote identification will be carried out by a trained customer representative. In the remote identity verification process, before the video call starts, an application is received via a form that the person shall fill in electronically and through the bank application where the remote identification process is operated. And risk assessment is carried out regarding the person by using the data obtained within the form. And finally, in the remote identification process to be applied within the scope of the regulation, and only biometric data can be used within the framework of the customer's special categories of personal data. And digital ID systems present a variety of challenges and risks because they often involve identity proofing and authenticating individuals over an open communication network. As a result, the processes and technologies employed by digital ID systems present multiple opportunities for cyber attacks between the parties. Without careful consideration of relevant risk factors and implementation of technology-based safeguards, as well as effective governance and accountability measures to address them, criminals, money launderers, terrorists, and other bad actors may be able to abuse digital ID systems to create false identities or exploit authenticators linked to a legitimate identity. There is increasing interest around the world in exploring biometrics for authentication as a response to money laundering and terrorist financing concerns. A key consideration is the privacy and data protection issues, including ethical concerns that are inherent in the collection of personal and biometric information. The centralized nature of sensitive data storage also increases the cybersecurity concerns and privacy risks associated with digital IDs. It is vital that governments set out a robust governance procedure, including for data management systems, and that this be maintained and consistently updated. And governments may also think about mechanisms to minimize the amount of collected personal data and how data systems will be maintained, especially to safeguard against data leakages and cyber attacks. And let's take a deep dive into deepfakes issue briefly. The so-called deepfakes create a fake video using deep learning technology, a branch of machine learning that applies a neural net simulation to massive data sets. In today's world of digital authentication, ensuring that someone is the one who they claim to be is a fundamental need for banking and financial service providers. At the speed at which deepfakes are evolving makes it clear that we will very soon start encountering fake identities which allow easily bypass any digital onboarding systems. And the researches around deepfakes and its potential impact on banking and finance domain is still in its early ages. However, all enterprises should consider this seriously while investing on their platforms, and they should have mechanisms to detect deep fake identity-related frauds. So, before passing the regulatory aspects, I would like to state that authentication is the process of verifying an identity claim against the registered identity information. Such information could be a personal identification number, a password, and a biometric data, etc. Challenges in this phase include how to reduce processing time, improve accuracy of matching for authentication, ensure a seamless experience for applicants, counter fraudulent behavior, and find affordable hardware and software solutions. A core principle of regulatory oversight is the requirement for a financial institution to know its clients and the source of their funds to prevent use of the accounts for fraudulent or illicit purposes. And this encompasses 5 primary activities. First, identification and verification process is done to gathering data on individuals from independent sources to confirm their identity. Secondly, evaluating the likelihood of new accounts against a framework for AML and CTF for risk assessment and profiling. Thirdly, transaction monitoring is done to review ongoing payments into and out of the accounts, including receipt and origination, to find any suspicious patterns. Then periodic review is done regularly to refresh customer information for accounts may occur depending on the customer's risk level. And finally, account exits are done for going over customer checkout when an account is closed to identify any impacts to beneficial ownership and retaining information. And besides that, every country adopts its own regulatory structure to carry out these requirements, but the Financial Action Task Force is the global standard setter for combating money laundering and terrorist financing and also proliferation. While FATF recommendations are not legally binding, but they are accepted by regulators as guidelines for national rules. In the end of the day, if we get all the factors together under 4 captions and reach a conclusion, we can say for a secure digital onboarding for banks, that KYC or CDD process is one of the important steps in achieving KYC requirements. It is defined as the set of processes the banks operate in order to obtain and analyze data about a potential customer. By evaluating information collected from different sources, the main purpose is to detect any suspicious activity or potential risks that threaten the financial institution's way of doing business. Higher risk customers that are associated with higher risk of money laundering and terrorist financing crimes as well are subject to enhanced due diligence processes, which focused on a risk-based approach. And the risk score is identified numerically by taking different risk factors into account, such as client type, geography, products or services, etc. Depending on the risk score, the clients can be categorized into risk groups, and the financial institutions can appoint and apply differentiating checks, process, and standards to measure and reduce risks accordingly. Secondly, the methods used for an effective AML compliance check has vital importance as well. Blacklist filtering is based on the blacklist or higher risk countries created by FATF or the other authorities. And the purpose is to watch over the countries closely to make sure that they are adopting and implementing the standards to prevent and combat illegal financial crimes while detecting those which do not comply with regulations. The other one is adverse media screening. It works by screening against popular or reputable information resources in order to understand whether the customer has any criminal record or is associated with any of them. It is the responsibility of the banks to perform the adverse media screening on their potential clients during the onboarding process. Thirdly, behavior biometric analysis is one of the methods to minimize the friction and detect fraudulent activity in the financial industry. It is possible for the financial institutions to differentiate between the real users and cyber criminals. Behavioral biometrics technology is able to detect suspicious behavior by analyzing the patterns and speed of typing, clicking, or swiping online. Even though the user is completely new, the machine learning technology conducted by the behavioral biometric analysis system can identify the statistically collected good or bad behavior. And last but not least, artificial intelligence and machine learning support the digital onboarding, offer the solution to the challenges of the overall process that banks may face. ID verification, false positive reduction, and anomaly detection are among the most effective features of these technologies that help increase the financial crime detection rates. So, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, the digitalization process will continue to accelerate, and this will result in a shift in customer preferences from traditional banking to online banking. In this transformation process, it will be the most important approach to move forward with one foot on the legislation and one foot on the risk. I tried to explain all the aspects of these topics, and thank you all for listening to me and your patience. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your lecture. And at present, I would like to ask and continue your subject by Dr. Karsten J. Pino. Can you start your presentation? We can't hear you.
I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
You can't hear me? So perhaps we'll start firstly with Professor Tala Karadai. Can I ask him or her, because I don't know? Perhaps we have some problems with the internet. Okay.
Could you hear me? My sound is okay for you?
Yes.
Okay. It's okay. So can I
Okay.
ask you? Yes.
Yes,
Can you
I am
present
ready.
our...
Yes, I can. Right now.
Okay,
I am
your
opening.
presentation.
Yes, that's it.
So please.
My name is Talha Karaday. I'm from Istanbul Commerce University. We complete this research with Associate Professor Adnan Veysel Ertemel, and today I will present it. Let's start. Our topic is analyzing the social economic effects of artificial intelligence on the social. Just before that, since the dawn of time, the development of human life has gone hand in hand with technological advances. From the first tools and the invention of the well to the present technology, the visible offspring of the human intelligence has lent mankind to longevity, comfort, and created tools for understanding the world around it. This change has not always been switch and destructive, but the climate has begun to evolve faster since the 18th century. The disruptive process were called revolutions, denoting that those movements were sudden and radical in nature. Each of these has brought in same new technological innovation that would mark the era. And now mankind stands on the verge of the newest, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has become hype across societies. Across the recent studies, it's found that there is a broad understanding of what AI is across society. However, only 2% of the respondents really believe that AI has major society's implications. Therefore, it could be inferred that although many have acquainted AI is a new phenomenon, only a few portions of the society are aware of its really implications from a socio-economic perspective. Sorry. Yes. It is without any doubt that artificial intelligence is set to radically disrupt humankind in various dimensions. The global economy is one of the dimensions is which AI is about to have an unsettling effect. Furthermore, AI is expected to change our social structures in an unprecedented way. It might even change how humanity views concepts such as labor, education, and governance. However, some scholars predict positive socio-economic effects, even though other scholars remain fairly pessimistic. This research attempts to contribute to eliminate the gap about this field by offering insights on AI's potential impacts on issues such as employment and economic growth, and to highlight the ethical issues that already raise concern for the future. It determines and dimensions in which AI is about to have the most disruptive effect in a socio-economic context. Based upon the extant literature, the research first identified 6 topics on the socio-economic effects of AI. Afterward, semi-structured interview with AI opinion leaders have been conducted to find the points in which a consensus is reached and the points that deserve special attention. Using the gathered insights, The research also aimed to creating a meaningful dialogue between working professions and opinion leaders. Yes, if I should mention the dimension of our study, socioeconomic disruption. Disruptive technological innovations can support vulnerable people, create ideas that transcend continents, and even change people's aspirations in daily life. So disruptive technologies are likely to be the trigger of a possible revolution. AI is promising unparalleled social, economic, and political disruption that has not been triggered by any technological advance from the Industrial Revolution to the present. According to same projections, the rise of artificial intelligence is the global economy. In the global economy, is projected to invalidate all industries and eventually generate mass unemployment. In line with expectation, most of the future people may face and will face the fact of transferring their work to machines, and as a result, they may turn into vagrant and purposeless beings. For example, robots have started to take a serious place in production in China. Foxconn, which supplies parts to technology companies such as Samsung and Apple, replaced 30,000 human employees with artificial intelligence, reducing the number of employees from 110,000 to 50,000 changed from human to artificial intelligent robots. Even in the United States, approximately 1 in 6 factory jobs are handled by artificial intelligence. With these developments, scientists have begun to question radical new uncertainties, including ethical dimension and possible AI development scenarios. As a result, AI has the potential to lead to an unprecedented socioeconomic disruption. Therefore, our dimensions is respectively value of employment, future of employment, ethics of AI, economic growth, society, and singularity and inequality. Our research methodology. Firstly, we performed a literature review about artificial intelligence and what is socioeconomic impact on the society. After that, within the scope of the study, interviews were conducted with a 6-person interview group consisted of business people, academicians, and entrepreneurs who have extensive knowledge about artificial intelligence and were asked questions about the following issue. What is these issues? Effect of AI on economic prosperity, the impact of AI on future of employment, universal basic income, and activities to reduce the impact of AI on the workforce, social credit score and future perspective, singularity and inequality, the feature of ethics, fairness, privacy, reliability, security, and transparency concepts, AI and human superiority, religious beliefs, the effects of AI on human interaction, or dependence on AI and deskilling, and finally, democracy in the future with artificial intelligence. And finally, we performed semi-structured in-depth interviews with our participants, and we tried to create some sites on this issue. So what did we find? What found us? in this study. According to the result, there is a main of somewhat general consensus on the disruptive effects on nature of AI, on economic prosperity, mass employment, our dependence, the scaling effect, and inequality between people. No consensus is reached for other dimensions, including ethics and religious. Having compiled the interview results, the dimensions upon which a consensus is reached among the experts are as follows. There is a general consensus regarding three of the dimensions in question. The potential of the AI to bring about economic prosperity provides that the countries have transitioned themselves to Industry 4.0. The likelihood that AI will cause overdependence and the scaling effect. However, the expectation that AI will not cause mass employment in the short term. They think it can be occur unemployment in the long term. The dimension upon which participants haven't reached a consensus yet state a general attitude are as follows. Universal basic income is seen as a necessary of a future world dominated by AI. From our participants, 5 out of the 6 participants. Social credit score is seen as an unacceptable practice by a majority of participants in terms of privacy. AI is likely to cause unemployment, especially for operational jobs. AI is regarded as unlikely to have a major threat on democracy. Majority of our participants believe that inequality between people will only get worse. Sorry, but you closed my slides. Yes.
Sorry about that.
No. I will open it again. It is not sure.
Could you summing up
Yes.
Your presentation in a few
Almost
words?
the parts that between only get 4 of these between. So it's almost my presentation. Okay, and continue. 4 of them believe this will take place between those who are prepared for AI and who are not prepared. And conclusion. The finding important contribute to the extant literature on AI. According to the results, it's foreseen that AI is likely to bring more poverty rather than prosperity to underdeveloped countries. It will also lead to inequality between people and the scaling effect. And the results also have important managerial, sociological, and economical implication by highlighting the areas which deserves the most attention regarding AI and socio-economical structures. And thank you for listening. My presentation completed right now. Thank you for all.
Thanks a lot. And President, I would like to ask if Dr. Iwona Lasek-Surowiec is present, is with us. Pani doktor, jest Pani z nami? Nie słyszę. Dr. Chancellor J. Pinow, could you present your lecture, your presentation?
Hello?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. There was a problem, obviously, with the Wi-Fi network. Isabella, thank you very much for inviting me and for the opportunity to speak to such a distinguished audience today, 2 years after we've been to Rzeszów, and hopefully we will be back again as soon as possible. My speech today is about a very important topic in the cybersecurity field, ransomware attacks on critical infrastructure and the implications for business administration and politics. And I will give you some trend statistics and facts about what's happening in 2021. Ransomware itself isn't a new cybersecurity threat. It exists for a longer time, but it has received attention at the highest level of government in this year, in 2021. And ransomware is affecting people in their old days life, their ability to get health care, for instance, to put fuel in their cars and their vehicles, or to buy some food. And what you can expect within the next 15 minutes is I give you a definition about ransomware. I tell you something about the status quo, something about the impact of ransomware for organizations. I will tell you something about the top 10 targets according to the study of Sophos in the ransomware study of this year. I tell you something about the trends in this year, and I wrap up with conclusions and recommendations for all of us. And first of all, ransomware is a type of software. It's a malware type used by cyber criminals, especially to encrypt your data and to demand a ransom for giving that data back and to decrypting it. And in almost 95%, this works perfectly, but in 5%, it doesn't. So you have to be prepared for such a ransomware attack. Let's have a look on the status quo. According to the Sophos State of the Ransomware 2021 report, half of the companies survived worldwide have already been affected by attacks. It is 5,400 companies that were surveyed. And the interesting thing is that in Germany, that number of companies affected is by 78%, while in Poland, it is 13%. And preferred targets in Europe are Great Britain, France, and Germany. And it is definitely not a question of if, but when a ransomware will attack your company, your organization, your university, or your governmental organization. Hackers follow economic trends, so this is an assumption that the number of attacks in Germany is much bigger than in other countries, has to do with the GDP, but it's just an assumption. They haven't researched it full in that study. Hackers follow economic trends, as I said, and realized countries with strong economies are addressed in particular by that people, and it is well organized in that field. Yeah, we come to the impact of ransomware. This could be first temporary and possible permanent loss of data. It could be possibly completely shut down of your organization's operation. In the worst case, finally loss of result of revenues generating, operating, being shut down while your company isn't working.
We have the problem with the internet and with the voice, yes, with the mute. We can't hear you at present. So I will ask if Dr. Iwona Lasek-Surowiec is with us or not. Okay, I can see you again. Can you speak something to us?
Can you hear me here now?
Yes.
Okay, I will try to go on. Financial loss, as you said, with remediation efforts could be a bad thing for organization, and damage to your organization's reputation is also one of the threats your company or your organization is faced with in the context of ransomware. So let's have a look on the top 10 ransomware targets. You see, this is 10 beginning with education, retail, business, profession, and legal services, central government, IT, manufacturing, energy, and utility infrastructures, healthcare, local governments, and financial service. And this is different in many countries. We have a very hard targeted local governments this year in Germany. They are still not full in function again. And the interesting thing is that education is in the first place. This has to do with the COVID-19 issue and the work from home and the studying from home, that this is this year in the top 10 list in the top position. All that educational organization wasn't well prepared for that threats. So what is the ransomware trends in 2021? First of all, this is supply chain attacks. Instead of attacking a single victim, you are able to victim a numerous number of victims with one attack. The second thing is what is so-called double extortion. This means it is not just encrypting data, but it is also exfiltrating data in order to publish them if the victim isn't paying the ransom. This happened in Germany with a local authority in the past. Ransomware as a service is a third trend. You are not. It is not necessary that you have high skill to perform cybersecurity and ransomware attacks, but you can rent that things as a service. Attacking unpatched systems isn't itself not a new trend for 21, but it's one of the continuous to be the issues year after year. And phishing is still a hard topic in order to avoid attacks and ransomware attacks. So you have to care about that topic in particular. Recent ransomware attacks, this is just a small number out of a numerous number of ransomware attacks all over the world. You have, maybe have all heard about the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack, which was affecting...
I must interrupt you for a minute, okay? I must interrupt you for a minute. Pani Kingo, proszę Cię już nie wyłączać. Proszę poczekać do końca. Ja Panią wywołam na samym końcu. Dobra? Thank you. Please go on. I'm sorry.
Can I go on?
Yes, please go on, because
okay. No, so it was affecting the support with gas in the east coast of the USA. ESA, as an international computer company, was affected by ransomware attacks. Kaseya was one of that systems which was in the context of food selling, and Eberspecher is an automotive supplier in Germany. This is just a few weeks ago that they were affected by a ransomware attack, and also a local authority in Anhalt-Bitterfeld in Germany, which is still not in full function again, unfortunately. So let's come to the next point, to conclusions. First of all, cybercrime is a global problem. Second, ransomware is a profitable business model for many of the actors. They earn much more money than with a normal work. So that is very attracting people to do this. Technical, organizational, national and transnational countermeasures are needed in order to defend against these attacks. Cyber criminals outpacing cyber defenders. So we have to become faster as defenders, and the lack of qualified personnel is also a problem we are facing. So we have to do everything in our companies, but also in the universities and in schools to be better in that field. I will finish with my recommendations. First of all, that for organizations, you have to maintain a defense and desk security strategy. This means ransomware is just one of many risks that you are faced with, and having multiple layers of defense is a key best practice. Consider advanced protection technologies. We know that normal cybersecurity defending techniques are not working anymore, so we have to use advanced technologies as attackers do that as well for attacking us. Educate employees, especially about the risk of social engineering. This is one of the most used attack vectors on companies. Patch software regularly. This is something you have to say. You can say often enough. Ransomware code often targets known vulnerabilities, and to eliminate these vulnerabilities, you take away some of that attack vectors against your IT systems. Perform frequent backup of critical data, and the most important thing, put them offline afterwards in order to avoid that they are also encrypted, is one of the most important thing, and perform a recovery to see if your systems going to back in to function. This is a very important thing. And consider tabletop exercises. These are the kind of exercise to identify potential gaps and ensure the right processes in place to mitigate and recover from a potential attack. And last but not least, my recommendations for the politics. It's not going any further right now.
Okay, I can understand that's all because I have students, they don't, and I can't understand it very well.
Okay, I will try. I can't go on with my presentation, but I will tell it from inside my head. Recommendations for politics is prioritization, prevention, using best practices in politics, emergency and recovery plans. Very important, anti-money laundering will be a thing, transnational cooperation, and to have enough and sufficient resources and budget is one of the keys to counter-fight ransomware. Thank you very much for listening, and Isabella, hopefully we will see us next again in Poland as soon as possible.
Okay, at present I will have two questions. One question for Professor Oss, and the second to you. But let's stay at the end, because I would like Mrs. Kinga Ferret to say a few words. Yes? For you, it will be how in your imagination should be the politician of European Union, yes, the change of the politician of European Union looks like in the future, in the next, for example, in the few years, yes, up to 2027, yes. What are your proposition? It's my question to you, and my question to Professor Oss. So you are speaking perfectly about the different cyber attacks, yes. So how, in your opinion, should looks like the Turkish, yes, strategy for protection of cyber attacks, yes, at present? And generally, what should be changed in the relation between Turkish and, for example, and NATO relations? Yes, in these dimensions. Yes.
Shall I start or Mr. Carson first? Yes, Mr. Carson? Professor Carson? You can start or I can answer my question.
Could you understand me, because I know that there is a lot of trouble with the internet here.
But can I answer my question?
Okay. Would you like me to repeat my question?
Yes, I understand your question. It was about Turkish cyber attack.
A cyber strategy, a cyber politician.
Yeah.
How should it looks like in the future, but in relation with NATO?
Okay. First of all, Turkey has almost industry 2.5 or something in between 2 and 3 out of 4.0. So especially German companies, which are Siemens, IBM, also United States, and also especially international companies. They are using zero trust policy. Zero trust. Zero trust is very important and something different than traditional well-known policies, because it includes, as it is understood from its name, zero trust, and it has mainly three. Let me check and let me give the right information. Yes, according to zero trust, there's a minimum trust first. This is the first point. The second one is minimum authorization and maximum authentication. And the third one is accepting the continuous lead. So under this issue, Turkish industrial sectors is starting to apply these policy within their business, within their organizations. This is the first attempt for Turkey, and for coming years, we know that it will be better than right now, because especially in defense system, we are having big technological developments. You might see from the newspapers and from the contemporary news. So Turkish defense system is very important for itself and also for its exporting countries. So when we are looking from the aspects of Turkey, we can say that it is increasing slowly, and it has to be increased when we are talking about the country's trust itself. So this is the first point. The second one was NATO and Turkey, you mean, I think. For our study, we mean by like a NATO defense system, we simply make a similarity between NATO defense system and cyber defense system strategy. It is a kind of different strategy we offer, we propose in our study. This may be utopic, as I said in my presentation, because when we are looking at the aim of the cybersecurities, mainly 3 points is has to be noted. One of them is the country's policy. The second one is the ransom type of cyber attacks, and the third one was the state's intelligence. So the first and the third aims should be eliminated by using such kind of policy. We offer this kind of strategy. Let's say for Turkey plus Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, they may be a kind of economic bloc, and they can have their own data center, and they can have their own defense system in front of their data center systems. So this would yield for each countries a decreasing cybersecurity defense system cost. So it will be a benefit for both Turkey and for the other countries who will together in that project.
Okay, thank you very much. But at present, perhaps I would like to add something, because why I ask this question? Because all my presentation was about the European Union and its strategy, yes, at present. And generally, one conclusion which I would like to add at the end, after your answering to my question, is the fact, although the European Union has a lot of different laws, yes, in the treaty or in the Lisbon Treaty, yes, and the different acts, yes, regulation and so on. Although it has so many law, it doesn't has institution, and it hasn't execution. So it's the most important things at present in the, for example, in my opinion, of course, in the European Union, to have enough protection of the cyber attacks in our space, in our cyberspace of European Union. That is one of the effects why we have so many cyber attacks, so many more cyber attacks. For example, in Poland, of course, and generally in the European Union. Okay, in so very short way. Not explaining step by step everything. Okay, and I would like to ask Dr. Karsten to his presentation. What in your opinion, what should we change, for example, in our intelligence, yes, in our policy, in our strategy up to 2027 year? Because as you know, it's the program, yes, of the European Union, 2027, yes, in which we should change generally the Europe. What should be our first step? In the war, with ransom and so on.
The question was to Carsten, right?
Yes, to Karsten, yes, to Dr. Karsten, yes. I don't know if Dr. Karsten hears us.
So can I add one sentence, please?
Okay. What is your opinion about the changes in the strategy policy of European Union in ransomware policy, yes, in protection us against ransomware policy and so on, up to in the European Union, of course, sphere, up to 2027, yes? What is your position?
They actually do not trust NATO. I see that because I can say that they have founded EDA, European Defense Agency, as you might know, and it was founded after 21st century, after at the beginning of the 21st century, 2001 or 2003, something like that. I cannot remember. And even though 26 European countries, 21 of them are a member of NATO. So they need to construct a kind of different agency, different construction. So this actually implies that the value at risk and the prevention will never be enough for any country or any organization or any business. So this has to be increased. When we talk with Carol, who is one of the intelligence of Israel, she said that as a good side of cyber hacker, she said that their main aims is to make use of high technology and higher than ever. As she said, this would never be has an ended. So this would be increased. This will never decrease, I think.
Okej. Pani Kingo, proszę bardzo, niech Pani prezentuje swoją.
I cannot hear you, sorry. If you are talking.
Because I was speaking to a student, yes, whose name is Kinga Ferret, yes, should present his point of view. Proszę Pani Kinga.
Kinga, your microphone is off.
Pani odblokujemy.
Teraz powinno działać. Ok.
Kinga.
Dobrze, tak więc myślę, że już mogę zaczynać. I dzień dobry. Tematem mojej prezentacji jest polityka cyberbezpieczeństwa Polski, uwarunkowania prawne. I zacząć mogę tutaj od przytoczenia tutaj rewolucji informatycznej w Polsce, jej historii i też przywołania jej jako takie nowe zagrożenie tutaj jednak stosunkowo na przestrzeni historii Polski dla bezpieczeństwa narodowego. Historia informatyczna, która rozpoczęła się w połowie XX wieku, no bez wątpienia wywarła tutaj wpływ na niemal wszystkie dziedziny życia państw. Polska poddana w pełni jej została dopiero w okresie tutaj pozimnowojennym. Równocześnie tutaj z rozwojem tego sektoru pojawiły się różne nowe rodzaje zagrożeń dla bezpieczeństwa Polski i wynikają one właśnie tutaj z procesów i zjawisk, które mają miejsce w cyberprzestrzeni i stało się to jako nowe środowisko walki, czyli ta cyberprzestrzeń. Pierwsze komputery pojawiły się już na przełomie 40. i 50. lat XX wieku, miały jednak charakter one eksperymentalny. No i do lat 80. XX wieku były używane głównie w strukturach państwowych i to w ograniczonym zakresie, kiedy to nastąpiła stopniowa proliferacja. Polska nabrała skrzydeł.
Kinga is speaking about Polish cybersecurity. Słychać, wiesz?
Polska nabrała skrzydeł dopiero po rozpadzie bloku komunistycznego i przeprowadzeniu reform demokratycznych. I pierwsze działania o charakterze przestępczym w dziedzinie tutaj cyberprzestrzeni nastąpiły, już tutaj miały miejsce w 1992 roku, a po 2000 roku Polska stała się państwem już tutaj uzależnionym od wykorzystania technologii. I strategia rozwoju społeczeństwa informacyjnego w Polsce do roku 2013 miała tutaj za zadanie jakby nakreślić Polsce, jak się rozwijać w tym. Korzyściami tej całej rewolucji jest niewątpliwie tutaj w wymiarze politycznym, gospodarczym i społecznym, jak również skok cywilizacyjny, podniesienie jakości usług państwowych, nowe sektory gospodarki, innowacje technologiczne, czy też łatwiejszy dostęp do informacji, optymalizacja funkcjonowania przedsiębiorstw i struktur państwowych, jak i też służb mundurowych. I zagrożeniami dla Polski, tutaj będę się posługiwała poprzez raport CERT z roku 2020 i w 2020 roku zarejestrowano aż 10 420 incydentów z dziedziny tutaj cyberbezpieczeństwa, co stanowi wzrost o aż 60% w porównaniu do roku poprzedniego, czyli 2019. I najwięcej z tych incydentów to był tak zwany phishing. I tutaj najpopularniejsze te scenariusze tego phishingu miały na celu tutaj zdobycie danych logowania do konta, czy też numeru karty płatniczej lub danych do logowania do bankowości internetowej. No i odnotowaliśmy również w 2020 roku serię incydentów związanych z wyciekami danych. Podobnie jak też w zeszłych latach obserwowaliśmy akcje dezinformacyjne i tutaj związane one były z włamaniami na portale informacyjne i konta polskich polityków. Zostały zgłaszane również przestępstwa przez krajowe instytucje publiczne oraz przedsiębiorstwa i można było zaobserwować dodatkowe zjawiska polegające na tutaj kradzieży cennych informacji lub też groźby ujawnienia tych informacji. I w marcu 2020 roku została uruchomiona lista ostrzeżeń CERT Polska, czyli taka publiczna baza domen wykorzystywanych tutaj do różnych nadużyć. i lista umożliwia tutaj blokowanie tych stron, jak i też taką większą wiedzę, przed czym się bronić. Dalej tutaj mamy właśnie, chcę omówić tą strategię rozwoju społeczeństwa informacyjnego. Był to projekt.
I am sorry, we have some problems with voice. We can't hear Kinga at present. She has appeared completely. One bit, but perhaps we have, I suppose that we have some generally here, Rzeszów, with it. But even her presentation, her Polish strategy and her movement in the European what changes were the effects, yes, of our Polish strategy. Presenting what has changed and what our strategy simply did. Please go on.
Tak więc projekt tutaj strategii rozwoju społeczeństwa określał działania priorytetowe i była to m.in. usuwanie barier prawnych, wspieranie czy też budowy tutaj infrastruktury telekomunikacyjnej, uprawnienie działania instytucji rządowych i samorządowych przy wsparciu technologii, koordynacja procesu tutaj administracji publicznej, całej tej informatyzacji tego, jak również rozwój przedsiębiorczości i innowacyjności w gospodarce elektronicznej, jak również w wizji sił zbrojnych do roku 2030 z maja 2008 roku zostało w niej powiedziane, że obok właśnie tradycyjnych tych fizycznych geoprzestrzeni do prowadzenia walki będą tutaj wykorzystywane sfery takie jak właśnie wirtualna przestrzeń i sfera informacyjna. No i w tym dokumencie podkreślono również skalę zagrożeń oraz potrzebę wypracowania tutaj zdolności Wojska Polskiego do realizowania tych zadań w cyberprzestrzeni. Kolejno chciałabym omówić ustawy, które się powołują tutaj do właśnie bezpieczeństwa tego w zakresie polityki.
Kingo, skup się na najważniejszym, okej?
Dobra.
Dobra, okej, mam taką prośbę, skup się najważniejsze, ja im tylko wytłumaczę, co ty teraz chcesz robić, dobra, żeby oni też wiedzieli, o co chcesz mówić. Kinga will be explaining the most important acts in Polish law, okay? Here she named this act, this law. At present she'll be presenting one of them, okay?
Czyli tak, mamy ustawę o prawie autorskim, o zwalczaniu nieuczciwej konkurencji, o ochronie baz danych, o ochronie niektórych usług świadczonych drogą elektroniczną, o świadczeniu usług drogą elektroniczną i też myślę, że tutaj ta najważniejsza to będzie ta ustawa z dnia 5 lipca 2018 roku o Krajowym Systemie Cyberbezpieczeństwa. I tutaj w ramach tej ustawy jest CIRT-NASK, który właśnie w 2020 roku obsłużył 32 incydenty, które zakwalifikowano właśnie jako poważne, czyli takie, których tutaj wystąpienie ma istotny skutek zakłócające właśnie te świadczenie usługi kluczowej dla państwa. I dalej mam o kodeksie karnym, jakie są właśnie w nim przestępstwa, jeżeli chodzi o cyberprzestępstwo. No i mamy tutaj podszywanie się pod inną osobę, czyli artykuł 190, o treściach pornograficznych z 267, później publiczne propagowanie totalitarnego ustroju lub tutaj nawoływanie do nienawiści na tle narodowościowych i tak dalej. Kolejno mamy uzyskiwanie dostępu do informacji lub tutaj systemu informatycznego bez uprawnienia, podłączając się właśnie do sieci, utrudnianie zapoznania się właśnie z zapisem informatycznym, utrudnia się dostęp do tutaj danych informatycznych lub zakłóca automatyczne przetwarzanie. I też bardzo ważny tutaj jest artykuł 269, paragraf 1 i 2. I tutaj mamy, kto niszczy, uszkadza, usuwa lub zmienia dane informatyczne o szczególnym znaczeniu dla tutaj już obronności kraju, bezpieczeństwa w komunikacji, funkcjonowania administracji prawnej lub tutaj instytucji państwowej. Mamy też 269a, czyli zakłócanie pracy systemu informatycznego i 287, czyli wyrządzanie tutaj szkody bez upoważnienia właśnie w to automatyczne przetwarzanie, czy też gromadzenie, przekazywania danych lub też tam zmienianie zapisów. Kolejno tak historycznie bardziej, czyli ten rządowy program ochrony cyberprzestrzeni, który miał być przez Agencję Bezpieczeństwa Wewnętrznego stworzony i zaczęto pracę nad nim w 2008 roku, jednak prace się przedłużały. Jeszcze raz.
Po prostu zadam pytanie. A ja od razu pozwolę sobie zadać pytanie, Kingu. A powiedz mi, teraz mamy, no prawda, w tym momencie strategię ochrony przestrzeni. Czy ty, gdybyś teraz coś byś w niej zmieniła, uważasz, że jest idealna?
Przepraszam, strasznie przerywa mi.
Pytam się, jeżeli chodzi o strategię ochrony cyberprzestrzeni. Uważam, że ta ekspertka zasiada uchwalenia cyberprzestrzeni zostawiła ochronę cyberprzestrzeni, czy coś by zmieniła? Jakie jest twoje zdanie, jeżeli mówimy o tej ochronie cyberprzestrzeni, o strategii ochrony cyberprzestrzeni, damy na obecną? To jest pytanie do ciebie.
Strasznie mi przerywa, ale z tego co rozumiem, to czy tutaj program ochrony cyberprzestrzeni, jeżeli miałby teraz być, to czy bym go na moje tak...
Nie, o strategię pytam, o naszą strategię.
Aha,
pytam o strategię ochrony cyberprzestrzeni.
Strategię ochrony cyberbezpieczeństwa. No to na pewno tutaj głównym celem jest jej tutaj podniesienie właśnie tej odporności na cyberzagrożenia i tutaj poziomy ochrony tej informacji, także myślę, że jest ona w obecnych czasach no, dosyć ważna, bo jak widać te problemy na przestrzeni cyber to zwiększają się, więc tutaj ta polityka ochrony cyberbezpieczeństwa jest dosyć ważnym tutaj dokumentem, jeżeli chodzi o polską politykę.
Dobrze, a coś byś w niej zmieniła, czy nie?
Jakieś cele?
No, ale jakie?
No, jest cel właśnie ten główny i są cele szczegółowe. No i tak z tych celi...
No dobrze, ale coś byś dodała, a może coś byś rozszerzyła, patrząc na to, co mamy już obecnie w strategii ochrony cyberprzestrzeni?
Myślę, że tutaj warto byłoby dodać jednak taką współpracę jednak międzynarodową, zwiększenie tego poziomu. tej współpracy międzynarodowej, bo myślę, że jednak my jako samo państwo nie jesteśmy aż tak rozwinięte, jak inne państwa członkowskie, na przykład w NATO, z którym współpracujemy już, jeżeli chodzi o cyberbezpieczeństwo, i myślę, że warto jest tutaj, można by było dodać do tej polityki ochrony cyberprzestrzeni jakiś zapis o właśnie tej współpracy z tymi państwami, które jednak są mimo wszystko bardziej rozwinięte od nas i myślę, że mają więcej do zaoferowania i możemy się od nich też sporo nauczyć.
Okej. W tej sytuacji, ponieważ czas nas nagli, nasza sesja ulega już wyczerpaniu. Dziękuję bardzo za uwagę, za udział. Pozwolę sobie to samo uczynić w kierunku pana profesora. Thank you very much for your presentation, for coming, and thank you for your being all the time with us. So I hope we will meet in the next 2 years or even earlier. And so I can tell at present only see you in the next time, okay, in the conference. I hope that in Istanbul at your university. So thank you one more time, dear professor.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Dziękuję raz jeszcze, Kingo, i w takim razie zapraszam na pozostałe kanały i do śledzenia innych uczestników naszej konferencji.
Dobrze, dziękuję bardzo. Do widzenia.